Star Wars 7x7, episode 2252. Timothy Zahn has revealed something that dovetails with other interviews we've done about the process behind the scenes at Del Rey and Lucasfilm, but he's also opened the door to some very interesting speculation about live-action Star Wars. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So, yesterday the new novel in a new Thrawn trilogy was produced, Star Wars, Thrawn Ascendancy, Book 1, Chaos Rising. I think that's the full title, close paren, but you can just call it Chaos Rising and everyone will know what you're talking about at that point, or at least anybody, who has heard the entirety of the title doesn't need the whole thing. All right, due diligence on that. Anyway, for the occasion of the release of the book, Timothy Zahn posted an update on his Facebook page, and he talked about some behind-the-scenes stuff in regard to the development and greenlighting of the project, and it actually dovetails with things that I've talked about with other Star Wars authors in recent interviews. For a start, one of the things that Timothy Zahn says is that Del Rey and Lucasfilm came up with a plan for him to write 3 books set in the Chiss Ascendancy that would predate Thrawn's arrival in the Empire. Then he says, by the time I heard about these discussions, everyone was already on board, which meant I didn't have to pitch or plead or cajole. All I had to do was say yes, or rather, heck yes, close paren. So just this past weekend, we had the interview with Alex Segura, who's the author of Poe Dameron Freefall, and he said something similar, that he was approached by Lucasfilm to pursue this particular project. They had a Poe Dameron book they wanted to be written, and they reached out to him to do it. A similar story was reported by Sarah Kuhn, who is the author of the Dr. Aphra audio drama, that they had in mind an idea to do a Dr. Aphra audio drama, and they reached out to her specifically to be the one to realize it. So this seems to be the way that Del Rey and Lucasfilm are approaching their novel projects. They are coming up with these ideas, these subjects, these places in the timeline that they want to pursue, and then they are identifying writers that they want to tell these stories. And I would say that their huge publishing initiative, the High Republic, pretty much falls along a similar path, with the exception that the 5 writers that they brought in to tell the stories in novel and comic format all worked together to break the whole story and to do character invention and all that stuff. Whereas, from the top basically was an idea from Lucasfilm, and they reached out to writers to bring them into it. So similar kind of thing, just a little bit different because of the scale of the project. There are a couple of other fun facts that Zahn shares, like for example the fact that Chaos Rising is the 3rd of his Star Wars books to not carry his original title. He says Lucasfilm didn't like his proposal and he wasn't comfortable with theirs, but that they've managed to find a compromise. And I believe, if I'm doing the math right, this is his 9th book with Star Wars, and so yeah, 3 of them. It's a funny little detail, I thought. Also, he notes that he was given 3 books right from the get-go. So he says, even better about this whole project was the fact that I was being given 3 books right from the get-go, the first time since the original Thrawn Trilogy that happened. So that tells us that the 3 Thrawn novels, I had to be careful about that so it didn't become a tongue twister, the 3 Thrawn novels that we've had already in the new canon, so Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances and Thrawn Treason, were not actually planned as a trilogy. They were just one-off novels that were approved as they went. And by approved, I mean greenlit, basically. Like, that's essentially how the process is being described. But there is one additional tidbit that Timothy Zahn shares that has much broader implications for Star Wars storytelling. He says, with the post-Rebels era still locked down, that's how Del Rey and Lucasfilm came up with a plan for him to write books that would predate Thrawn's arrival in the Empire. The post-Rebels era is still locked down. That's the phrase that Timothy Zahn uses. So we're going to parse that. And before we do, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Audible and thank them again for letting me offer you a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial by going to sw7x7.com/audible, where you can get Chaos Rising or any of the previous 8 Thrawn novels or any of hundreds of Star Wars books or thousands of other titles. sw7x7.com/Audible to take advantage of that free audiobook download and free 30-day trial, and thank you very much for supporting the show. So, a post-Rebels era lockdown. You know, when I thought about this, what occurred to me is that the only other time I've heard anything about a lockdown in a particular era was when we heard about George Lucas saying, no, don't go into the Clone Wars space because eventually I'm going to do something with that. And so that statement suggests that Lucasfilm has some plans for a post-Rebels era, but what exactly does that mean? Because post-Rebels, technically speaking, is about anything from a year before the events of A New Hope onward. However, there was an epilogue in the Rebels' final episode that took place after the Battle of Endor, and so it takes place after Return of the Jedi. So where does that post-Rebels era begin in Lucasfilm's mind? Is it from 1 BBY or is it from 4 ABY? So that's question 1. And question 2 is the question that was left unanswered at the end of Star Wars Rebels, which is what happened to Ezra and Thrawn. If you did not see the show or you do not remember the finale, if you did see it, Thrawn and Ezra were jumped to hyperspace by a Purrgil, or the Purrgil, multiple Purrgil, which are these basically giant whale-like creatures that can naturally go into hyperspace. So we don't know where they went. They just jumped from Lothal, and heaven knows where they are now. But the implication that was given to us by the end of Rebels in that epilogue is that Ezra is still out there somewhere. And interestingly, they only say that Ezra is still out there. That's the monologue that Sabine delivers at the end. There's no mention of Thrawn, so we don't necessarily know what's happened to him. We don't know if he came back onto the radar for any particular period of time after 1 BBY, like that's still an open question as well. But the suggestion that this era is locked down and that Thrawn and Ezra jumped away does lend credence to the possibility that there's other storytelling regarding Thrawn and Ezra that is being developed, and because of the fact that that space is locked down, it makes one wonder whether the Thrawn and Ezra material being developed, under the presumption that it is being developed for something a little bit more intense than novels or comic books, as in live action. So yeah, that one small statement seems to open up a world of very fascinating possibility. I'd love to know what you think about it, whether you think that, I might be on a right track or whether you think I'm completely crazy. Drop me a line wherever you catch the show, or if there's no comment section where you catch the show, then home base at sw7x7.com. And that is going to do it for the episode today. Thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.